How you doing, Vision Conference, Bridges students and staff? I'm so happy to see you. It's not the way I wanted to see you. A year ago, my wife, our 3 kids, and I, we had the awesome privilege of dancing with about 1,000 international students all the way into the year 2020. It was so awesome that we told the organizers last year that we'll be there this year in 2020 to dance into the new year again. We enjoyed it so much. But as it turns out, and as you know very well, we can't do it that way this year. And if we did, we'd have to wear stuff like this for it to work well. But I am still glad that I can join you this way. I'm thankful for technology. By the way, my name is Santosh. I am a house church pastor, and my wife and I have started a concept called 3CG, Third Culture Under the Third Generation. And we're just excited to continue to work with Bridges International. We love the institution. We love international students. And so because we couldn't be here live with you this year, I thought I would do the next best thing, which is take a big risk. All right, I don't normally do this, but I thought I would try and sing a song for you guys as we get going here. Music is sort of a universal language, and as you heard from Tanya Crossman earlier this week during the conference, we need to find places where we have common interests, and music is one of them for me. And I'm not a great singer or a great guitar player, but I do love music, and I wanted to sing this song as we get going. So hope you can hear me, and hope it'll make sense. It's a song by one of our friends, Andrew Peterson. It's called Many Roads. So it goes like this. You can see the roads that we all travel just to get here. 1,000,000 minuscule decisions in a line. Why they brought us to this moment isn't clear, but that's all right, 'cause we're online. Could it be that the many roads you took to get here were just for me to tell this story, and for you to hear this song, and your many hopes and your many fears were meant to bring you here all along? They were meant to bring us here all along. And for just a few minutes that I'm with you, I wanted to tell you about the roads that brought me to this moment to spend with you. And I wonder if along the way we're going to realize that it was this very moment that our roads converged together, even virtually, even in a year like 2020. I am a third culture kid, just like Tanya described, only it's a little bit different. You see, I was born in the United States to immigrant parents from India. And not just India, but South India, a tip called Kerala, the state of Kerala. And like many immigrants in the 1960s, late 60s, they came to America with aspirations to give their children, successive generations, a chance at a better life than they could have had probably in their country of origin. And like many immigrants who came to this wonderful country, they tried to reproduce a little bit of what they left. You see, because coming here to the United States in 1968 for my parents was entering into a period of exile. And you know what exile is. Exile is those moments, right, where pain and disappointment can fill our lives. We feel out of place, like we belong, but we don't really. We're trying to fit in, and it's not working, but we have that resiliency to keep trying. Exile is that experience which encompasses those things that can feel confusing and disorienting. And so my parents came, and what they did was, I was born here in America, but they raised me like a 1968 South Indian. And so here I am in America, a born American citizen, but I'm being raised like a 1968 South Indian. And somewhere in between, a new culture was being formed where I wasn't all American, but I wasn't all Indian. I was this third space, this third culture. And as Tanya told you, that's a really tough place to be. It's a wonderful opportunity for some amazing things, but it can be also very disorienting. And it was for me. I was living in a world where I just felt like I couldn't measure up to anyone. I couldn't measure up to what my parents wanted. And being Indian and Eastern, our communal sense, I felt like I had to represent Indians really, really well and show them that I was a South Indian, proud of my heritage. But Monday to Friday, I was in a school where there was no one who was even colored. I was the only colored person in my school. And so to fit in, I had to become someone who I was not. To survive in this sense of exile, I ended up learning to be different things to different people. And over years and decades, what that led to was I became an imposter to myself. I actually had no clue who I really was. And all that mattered to me was what people needed me to be. And as long as they were happy, I thought I would be happy. And the crazy thing in all of this is, as happy as I would make Americans feel, or Indian Americans feel, Christians or non-Christians, sports fans, music fans, as happy as they were with whom they were experiencing in me when I was alone, I would feel the deepest sense of sadness and even anger, because I knew I was just putting on different masks. And I knew it was all driven by fear. I was afraid that the real me couldn't measure up to anything or anyone. And I tell you who I was most afraid of and who I put a mask on before most. And that's the transcendent being that Francis Sue spoke to you about. I always knew, and I grew up in a home, a Christian home. We went to church every single Sunday, and it was an all Indian American church. And I grew up in this church, going every single Sunday to this church, and putting on a mask that showed I was a good churchgoer who did all the prayers out loud, who read and memorized the scriptures of the Christian faith, which is known as the Bible, and I would sing Christian songs, and people were so happy with me, but I knew it was just to make them happy. I knew that there was something different between what I was showing out here and what was happening on the inside. I was living a secret life of sadness and anger. And that led me into all kinds of places that my imagination in its worst places would take me. And I knew that this transcendent being, while I fooled everyone else, I knew I couldn't fool this transcendent being. And in fact, I don't know how and when it started, but I know this. I was completely afraid of this transcendent being, this supernatural being that had created everyone and everything, that held the keys in his hand for not just this life, but the life to come. I was afraid because I knew he wasn't fooled by me. I knew he saw what no one else saw in secret. And I was afraid of him. And I was sure that one day he was going to get me. Somewhere in my head, I had this sense, one day he's going to pull the mask off and I'll be exposed to the world. And then everyone will know what he knows, that I am an imposter and that I am not likable. I was driven by this sense that God, who created me, was not happy with me and didn't like me. And if people knew the real me, they wouldn't like me either. And I'd be alone. And I was crippled by this. But I didn't know what to do. That's why when Denisa Suarez talks to us about mental health, now at the age of 48, I wish there had been a Denisa in those days for me. Someone that could tell me it's okay to feel lost. It's okay that you're confused. Let's talk about it. It's important to know your story, who you are. It's okay. I didn't have that then. And all I knew was that I was trapped. Till one day, I was listening to music, and I had come across the music of a musician named Rich Mullins. And when I listened to him, my life actually changed. Because for the first time, I heard this musician singing beautiful songs that were honest about the real him that is afraid and angry and sad, but also experiences joy. I heard a beautiful song that was deeply honest, and it told me the truth. Things I had memorized but never believed. I was hearing my story. I was being introduced to myself, and introduced first and foremost to this God who created me. I was beginning to believe that he was not angry at me, that he loved me, that I was created uniquely, just like you are. There has never been a duplicate of you, ever. You are uniquely created, and so am I. There must be a reason we're here, for more than just living and dying. There must be. He must love what he has created. That's what the scriptures told me, that when he created humans, he said it's very good. I was starting to believe that, but I was still suspicious of people. I was still really afraid. I was still feeling like people wanted me to be the same as them. And I didn't know how to work it out. Then I got married to my beautiful wife, whose picture you saw earlier. And she was a counselor. And she is a counselor. And she was the one who began to ask me the questions about how I was brought up and how I was raised. And she was the one who saw what no one else but God had seen up till then. She was the one who would wake up next to this guy, not with his hair perfectly combed, but with pillow head. Not with his, minty, toothpaste smelling breath, but the one who just woke up with bad breath. She saw the real me. And she loved me. And she accepted me for who I am. And one of the most amazing things that happened to me is I learned that her strengths were now my strengths. And my strengths were her. See, we weren't the same, but we were becoming one. And oneness is not the same thing as sameness. Oneness is when we look at the best of our differences and find how they create a new culture, a beautiful culture, a third culture. And then I began to look out at the world and look at people in a new way, less afraid, less desirous to create stories that I thought other people really wanted to hear. There was a woman, Zilla Vanderborn, and several years ago, she was a Danish student who was posting on her Facebook about an epic 5-week trip throughout Southeast Asia. And she would upload videos and photos, and she was sending emails to friends and family about this once-in-a-lifetime trip. She wrote a blog, and all of it was amazing. You know why it was amazing? Because she never stepped foot in Southeast Asia. What she did was she was conducting an experiment to show everyone how easy it is to manipulate reality and tell a story that you want other people to hear. And I learned how easy it was for me to put on a mask and how hard it was to pull it off. But when I did, I found freedom. I found friendship. I found I'm not alone. You know what I found? There's a lot of people like me out there, afraid of one another and even afraid of the God who created them. And in relationship together, we began to, and we're still helping each other take off our masks and feel safe to be the real ones we are. And my friends, I want to say that to you because you're international students, and was not an international student, but you're third culture, and I'm third culture. And I know the feeling of exile. And I know that this year in particular, the exile felt worse. You had to wear mask. You had to learn how to get on Zoom calls and FaceTime and WhatsApp and be distant. You weren't sure if you'd be asked to return to your country because of the nature of the global pandemic. There was so much going on. My wife Shiny and I, we contacted Bridge staff to say, how can we help these students? It must be so hard. It's hard for us. It must be so hard for them. And what a delight it was to hear that Bridge staff were reaching out in love and trying to let you know that we're in this together. Literally, this microscopic virus brought the whole world down and let us know at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Friends, I want to just tell you that the best thing and the best news about this experience is that our togetherness, it comes from our very Creator. See, in his book, in the Bible, there's a chapter where Jesus, who is God who put on flesh and came to this world, he actually says to exiles, to people who were afraid, to people who felt disoriented and confused, like they belong but they don't. He said, you know what? I don't call you servants anymore. Like we're so distant. I'm the master, you're the servant. He said, no. I no longer call you servants. I call you my friends. And he didn't just say it, but he came. And that's why I've trusted him. And that's where I find the courage to go out and try again in relationship with others. When I'm so afraid, I hear the one who created me and the one who created you saying, we're not master and servant. We're friends. See, because he says a servant doesn't know what his master is thinking, but friends do. And so, for the time being, maybe virtually, maybe through Zoom calls, we need to tell each other we're in this together. We need to create safe places where we can find people like Denisa that can help us think through our depressions, our loneliness, our sadness, our fears, our anger. We need to have people who do that, people like Tanya who tell us, try this. Try finding other places of oneness. And we need to remember that this story is written by an author who has not lost control. This author has written a whole book about your life, and your life fits in his hands. You and I, we wait for each page to be turned to find out what's next, but he has your whole unique story in his hand, and he can be trusted because he's transcendent and he's good. There is no such thing as a good story without conflict, is there? Of course not. Every good story has conflict. Every good story has challenges. 2020 is a dark puzzle piece. We don't understand it. It's really, really dark. But you know that a puzzle piece never stands on its own. A puzzle piece is always part of a bigger puzzle. It's always part of a bigger story. And so while this piece looks dark, it's all part of a much bigger and better story. Your experience of exile, my experience, this entire world's experience of exile is not how the story ends. There is a master portrait being put together. You and I are part of it, and we can trust him. Tell each other better stories than the ones you see, and ask one another to help each other tell better stories. And maybe next year, my family and I are going to have the massive delight to dance with thousands of international students into the next year. To that end, I'm praying for you. We love you. God bless you.